Hi friends, host Eric here, host talking Spanish people. I want to respond to Mark 8v29. Um, and to show exactly how and why my TI points are so valid. Mark 8b29 says, good and bad, question mark? Your example of winning an argument is regarding an argument in a closed system? Most interesting arguments are surely not within closed systems. Is yours interesting, not within a closed system, or irrelevant? The need for definitions is the need to close the system to establish rules for the argument game. Is that what you're doing right there? Is this argument an example of things critiquing? The winner of the argument is often the one who defines the boundaries of the closed system or the rules of the argument or war. Okay, that's a observation that's um, I guess accurate. Most of the meaningful work done are mistakes and errors. Mistakes and errors are the greatest source of revolutionary discovery. Ha ha. Okay, well, right. That's how we determine who's correct, by finding the mistakes and errors, right? And that's what argumentation is the parsing out of mistakes and errors. So the one that is as mistake or error free at the end, once all the mistakes and errors have been parsed through, is the one who is correct, pending further argumentation or information. If there are other arguments available to defeat the argument standing, then make them. This you're doing here is an argument without a real claim. I mean, you're saying most interesting arguments are surely not within closed systems. All arguments within closed systems because all arguments rely on the static and definitional nature of words and the static and logical functional mechanisms of grammar. As does every of these arguments you're making, or statements, or claims, or questions, whatever they are. All right. So let's look at the next one. He says, as I suggested previously, what you're doing, Eric, is using logic and reason to convince yourself, or at least support your feeling K is the best match for you. Okay. So you're arguing that I am presenting arguments for a certain reason. Okay, this is my purpose. My purpose for making these arguments is to support the feeling that Kimberly is the best match for me. Let me, for the sake of argumentation, concede that point. Okay, that's why. Now I can still be either right or wrong, right? So he says, if you discovered a flaw in your reasoning, that would somewhat undermine your relationship. Okay, let me concede that for the sake of argumentation again. This is the downside of MBTI and socionics regarding matchmaking. The feelers probably don't care what the latest interpretation of MBTI or socionics is regarding matchmaking because their heart rules their head, but the thinkers are building a house in part on sand based on a relationship on their head rather than their heart. As a thinker, I tell this to myself, and it concerns me somewhat. My concern is reduced because I feel strongly for NFJ, so my own interpretation of MBTI rematch making backs up that feeling rather than driving it. However, if tomorrow I thought differently, as my head rules my heart, I would be rather shaken and would doubt my love. In a sense, MBTI is both a curse and a blessing when it comes to matchmaking. A feeler wouldn't wish to hear, and perhaps a thinker wouldn't wish to hear from their partner, I love you because you're type blah, and I'm type blah, and I'm currently convinced blah is the best match for blah. Does not the whole idea of type matching making fall down because it is probably asymmetric, despite the fact fans try to enforce symmetry upon it? As you say, I tend to agree. Just because type blah is the best match for type blah does not follow that the reverse is true. In fact, I would not be surprised if the reverse were not true. Experts reject the universe more, introverts reject experts. Okay, well,
Now take your question.
let me mute that. So my response to that is, you misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm trying to explain the ways in which people who have certain habits of attention, certain habitual manners of attention, the way in which those habitual manners of attention, mechanistically and in and of themselves, manifest in relation to each other. So I'm not talking about the individual people or types, and I'm not saying that you should invalidate relationships that aren't dual relationships. I've said in the past videos, and I'll say again, there is an FI component to a relationship that makes it unique between the two individuals having that relationship. It is between two human people, not between two examples of type. People often take type the wrong direction. Type is best used to explain why things occur, why people work well together or don't work well together, why I'm fighting with you about this and not that. It's best used to explain those sort of things. It's not well used, really, as a mechanism to drive decision making, as far as I'm concerned, unless you're trying to decide how best to maneuver somebody else into doing what you want them to do. In that case, typing might come in handy. I'm not particularly manipulative like that. I don't consciously think those things when I deal with people, and it rarely, I rarely use it as a tool like that. Instead, I use it as an analysis tool to better understand myself, my partner, and the way that we're interacting with each other. It rarely comes up with Kimberly anymore that we are duals, but it comes up plenty frequently when I say something like, "Oh my God, that's that so makes sense why you would say that and feel that way, and I would initially react with this sort of resistance. But now that I think about it, I understand these things as examples of their respective modality of attention." That's the thing you got to continually bring it back to if you want to actually understand this shit. We have modalities of attention. We can pay attention in some ways. We can sometimes pay attention in more than one way, depending on the type of attention we're talking about. And some attentions we cannot pay concurrently. These realities are true and simple, and as factual description of human attention as one can make, given the nature of the thing at hand, which is to say, agency manifesting itself real time, the most metaphysical thing imaginable, once one extracts out from it meaning and makes it exist across time, that meaning. So the thing is, yeah, obviously people do have habitual manners of attention. Yeah, obviously habitual manners of attention either conflict or collaborate or are compatible or not. And I believe, yeah, it's obvious that people who have habitual manners of attention do so in a certain order of preference, and that order of preference or order of habitual use is going to dictate your general default attitude towards that. So when I'm talking about whether or not people should be in a duality relationship or not or whatever, I'm speaking loosely and sometimes carelessly and sometimes at fault. What I should be making clear is that this is the most useful way for you to understand how and why you interact with the other people in your own life. That if in fact it's not useful for that purpose and you don't resonate with any of it, then you shouldn't be paying so much attention to it. You should find something that you can use to taxonomy human consciousness, because it is important as far as I'm concerned to metacognate. By metacognate, what I mean is to think about this stuff. So, Mark, what you should be doing right now with this video is saying to yourself, okay, so he's right on point here. He's made all the points, and my objections don't really hold any ground. To the extent that they do, I'm objecting to things he's not saying. All right, so what's actually going on here with me, Mark? Well, I get that there's a need to, from by NETI to critique, and that it's necessary for us to test the validity of that which we encounter by pointing out that which is wrong with it. I don't try to reduce what you're doing simply to an FE exercise of I'm going to show blah. Usually that's going to be the response a lot of people are going to give you if they want to critique your critique. They're going to say, your critique is just an FE, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter what your critique is in terms of your motivation for it. What I'm saying is it doesn't hold water because it's an example of what I'm saying and for all the reasons I said in this video. So take to heart that this is an opportunity for you to refine your own sense of argumentation and your own sense of logic, because that's what argumentation is logic. If you argue well, you have good logic. If you don't argue well, you have bad logic. It's just that simple. So I encourage everyone to take away from those instances when I come back and say, no, this is why that's not right. Instead of coming back again, doubling down, generally take a step back, evaluate what you can take away from this, and apply next time. And thank you for watching Ain't Talking with Fence People. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. Obviously, the ice cream man's coming, so I've got important business coming up here in a second. I'm going to have to go get an ice cream, I guess.